Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. This is the first of what I'm sure will be many theory videos on what we might see in the upcoming Amazon Lord of the Rings series. As I was reading articles and seeing posts on social media, I saw a lot of speculation surrounding the characters of Elrond and Galadriel. And while it makes total sense for both characters to be major players in a series set during the Second Age, I wonder if one of the chief characters might actually be from later in the Second Age, namely Isildur. Let me explain. Welcome to Nerd of the Rings, where we talk all things Tolkien. During the nearly 4,000 years of history of what makes up the Second Age, there are two periods of major conflict. There's a 7-year war of elves and Sauron, featuring, you guessed it, a war between elves and Sauron. It's prior to and during this time that we see things like Galadriel and Celeborn come to Lothlorien, Elrond founds Rivendell, and the Rings of Power are constructed. Now surely, there's definitely some great stories to tell during that time frame. However, I believe we could see the main story in the series taking place during the fourth and final millennium of the Second Age. It's during this time that Ar-Pharazon captures Sauron, who surrenders without resisting. Incidentally, that should be a huge red flag. Sauron then gradually earns favor to the point where he becomes an advisor to the king. He converted many of the Numenorians to worship Morgoth, has the White Tree cut down, and convinced the king to rebel and attack against Valinor, the Undying Lands where Frodo sailed to, as we see in the end of Return of the King. I believe there's a chance we may see the main story of the Amazon series set during this time period. And if not to start with, then eventually I think this is where we're going to end up. I could definitely see a scenario where Season 1 centers around the conflict between the elves and Sauron and the Numenorians coming to their aid, with the Season 1 finale showing that final battle where Sauron is captured. But it'd be really cool if they kind of gave us a little visual hint right at the very end of the finale for Season 1 that this might not necessarily be the good thing that the characters think it is. I have some thoughts on how each season of a 4 to 5 year show could play out, but I'll save that for another video. If the show were to take place during this time period, I think Isildur makes a very compelling choice for a series lead. And I must preface this by saying the trademark of any Tolkien adaptation is that there's definitely lead characters, but you have a wide array of fantastic ensemble characters. That is a must. But there are a few advantages to having Isildur as the main character. First off, there's familiarity, but not too much. From watching Lord of the Rings, we know of Isildur, but we don't really know him that well. We have so much more time with characters like Galadriel and Elrond that those characters and their portrayals by Cate Blanchett and Hugo Weaving are iconic and beloved. Isildur, on the other hand, is only seen in a couple flashback scenes. He's mentioned in context to Aragorn's lineage, but that's about it. It's a much less risky move for Amazon to cast someone else as Isildur and put them front and center than Galadriel or Elrond. Speculation says, and I totally agree with this, that we will see younger versions of Galadriel and Elrond. I just think that they may not be the most primary characters of the story. The second reason that I really think that Isildur would make a great choice for a lead is his heroics. And you wouldn't know this from watching Fellowship, but Isildur is actually a very heroic character who did some very important things. As I mentioned earlier, through Sauron's influence, the White Tree of Nimloth gets cut down that's in Numenor. And before it gets cut down, though, Isildur steals a fruit from that tree. And from that fruit, we get the White Tree of Gondor that we see pop up in Return of the King. Isildur, along with his father and his brother, also managed to escape the destruction of Numenor. And he and his brother Anarion go on to establish the realm of Gondor when they reach Middle-earth. Not to mention, he has a huge role in the Last Alliance when they finally defeat Sauron. I could definitely see a scenario where Isildur sees the effect that Sauron has on the king of Numenor and leads it to destruction. They lose their home and have to go to Middle-earth, and they establish the realm of Gondor, and then they gradually build up their power to where they can then go back after Sauron and avenge the fall of Numenor. And finally, another reason I think he would make a really compelling series lead, Isildur's tragic fall. So after everything, all his heroic acts, and he avenges Numenor by defeating Sauron during the Battle of the Last Alliance, but tragically, as we all know, he falls short of destroying the ring and Sauron. If things are done properly, we could see an Isildur that we come to know and love. Aside from his failure to destroy the ring, he's a very heroic and potentially likable character. If done right, it could make the ending all the more emotional when a character we've grown to know and care for ultimately falls short. This has the potential to do what all prequels should, which is enhance the original material, in this case the Lord of the Rings films, without detracting from it. Isildur can still be heroic and likable in the Second Age, but fall short when it comes to the ring and be known for his greatest failure in the time of Lord of the Rings. It could even serve as greater emphasis on why Aragorn is so hesitant in the films. Despite how great and heroic Isildur was, he still failed to destroy Sauron when given the chance. Now I say all this, keep in mind it is just a theory. I will probably have many of these that change before we even see a teaser for this show. I would sign me up for a show that shows the conflict between elves and Sauron from the beginning. I'm totally down for that too. But I do wonder, just looking at what all happens during the Second Age, if Amazon might look at this particular period with the fall of Numenor as one with the most drama and the most compelling storyline to go with. Well, to wrap up my theory, I'll just end with how I think the show might end if it goes this route, and that would be the way Fellowship began, with the last alliance of men and elves. And hopefully they don't forget about the few dwarves that showed up as well. But it could be really great to see Isildur get revenge on Sauron for the destruction of Numenor. And, you know, we'd come to know the characters of Gil-galad and Elendil a lot more, and so when they fall, it would have a lot more impact than when we see it in the prologue. And it would make for such a bittersweet ending if we've come to care for Isildur, to see him have this triumph over Sauron, and maybe, you know, men are chanting his name. They're chanting Isildur, Isildur, after he's cut the ring, and then Elrond leads him up to the crack of doom. Isildur looks at the ring and hears that chanting whisper in his head, Isildur, Isildur, and then decides to keep the ring for his own. And the final frame of the show is Elrond yelling, Isildur! I could see it. It could be epic. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Again, this is just the first theory of what I'm sure will be many. Can't wait till we start getting some production stills and some little breadcrumbs to go off of, and I'll be sure to be posting videos throughout the process, and we'll ride this ride together. So we'll see you again on Nerd of the Rings.